what I always look for.
And as a coach yourself, Mark, you've had many players go on to play college ball, and a few get drafted into the big leagues. Is there one common denominator you see in kids that want to get to the next level and have success?
Perseverance. Absolutely.
Perseverance. Yeah, that's a good one.
Determination. You know, I've had the ability, you know, over 18 years of coaching various levels of high school and travel, and, you know, the last few as a college guy. Honestly, that's the difference, you know, John. It really is. It's between the ears. You know, yes, don't get me wrong, there's skill sets involved. But I've seen kids with similar skill sets or better that because they don't have it between the ears, they can't even make a varsity high school roster. So, you know, to me, those kids who stood out are all about determination and not letting anybody tell them that they can't do it. And if they need to do it, they go and do it. They ask for help. They're acceptive of criticism. And most importantly, they're willing to fail to achieve that goal. And once you can do that, there's really no holding you back. And that's been I've seen kids get drafted. I've seen kids go on and play professionally. And that, to me, you know, they didn't have the same skill sets as some other players that I had, but they were willing to run through the wall to do it.
Alex Bregman's a great example, third baseman there for the Houston Astros. I heard a story after they won the World Series. He was at a local high school out in West Texas after he'd already won the World Series, and he's in a indoor hitting tunnel at a local high school working on his game like 2 weeks after the World Series. Pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. I mean, what he's done in just a short amount of time, he's setting himself up for a great career.
Coach Cooke, are there some things you can reflect on as a player yourself, the adversity that baseball teaches and the perseverance you mentioned earlier that have impacted you now as a leader of Firecracker Baseball, a coach, a father?
Yeah, great question, John. You know, in high school, unfortunately, I was caught as a sophomore, junior. And, you know, after being caught and, you know, thinking that you're as good as other players and so on, I almost actually stopped playing. And, you know, it took me a while to, like, overcome that, you know, especially as a junior. That's, like, your big year to play in college. And I went through, and I kept playing, but it wasn't really at the same level. And I had a great mentor, and he actually became the head coach for that school and told me to come back and try out. And I thought he was kind of nuts, and he goes, you know, I suggest you do it if you're passionate about the game and you want to stay involved. And I did end up trying out. I didn't make the team as a senior in high school, and he told me I was going to be nothing more than a BP batting practice pitcher at the time.
Well, that was deflating.
And, yeah, you know, and I remember sitting there going, geez, do I really want to work all these days to maybe never get into a game? And what I said to myself was that I have an opportunity here because I'm just going to keep going forward, and I'm going to push through it. And so ultimately, you know, I ended up going 6-0 my senior year. And, you know, I got my shot, you know, not right away, but, you know, after the season started, I started getting innings here and there. Then I ended up getting a big start against a cross-state rival Catholic school, and they were a powerhouse at the time, and we beat them. And I pitched the game, and after that, you know, you kind of felt like, okay, I can do this. Like, I'm as good as these guys. And
you had a breakthrough.
I did, you know, and I do. I owe it all to the people that were around me, supporting me, but, you know, ultimately was that head coach who pushed me. And, you know, I'll never forget it. And I ended up going to play 4 years in college at Salve Regina and ultimately pitched in the NCAA Regional Tournament. And, you know, from there, I always took that into coaching and pushing kids to, you know, have positive experience, but always believing that they can do it. Because who am I to say that they can't? Because I've been there. And when you take that approach, you bring that at, perseverance that I talked to you about earlier. With
that's the patient perseverance for sure.
Absolutely. And you wanted to relate it to today and talk about that. In the business world, there's no difference, John. Like whether you're working for DBAT or you're working for Firecracker, the perseverance that we face every day is, people not returning phone calls.
Adversity, adversity from disgruntled customers or people that want something overnight.
Absolutely. And to sum this all up, it's, like we're exploring going into new areas that are outside the Northeast. And, I want to save that for another day, but, that perseverance, if you don't believe in yourself that you can do this, you're not going to do it. You're already failing. You're already failed if you haven't tried. And to me, I learned that at a valuable moment in my life at a younger age. And I've always tried to instill that in my coaching philosophy, but more importantly now, coaching and Firecracker. And so that's why at this time, we'll still push forward and put events in new areas, because what's the worst thing that can happen? We fail? Okay, well, we learned a valuable lesson. But I honestly believe if you do everything the right way and you continue to believe in what you believe in, you're going to have a positive outcome. And because of those 2 years in high school, maybe 2.5, the way you look at it, I really am thankful to that coach for everything I've done, because I don't know if I would be sitting here right now still in the game of baseball if it wasn't for him.
Mark, I know it's hard to single out, a few kids on one hand, but are there any former players that have had an impact on you personally that you still communicate with, that had an impact on your family?
Yeah, I mean, there's been many, John, and like I said, I've had the privilege of coaching, for 18 years after finishing playing, and, there's countless players that I'm still connected with. I mean, I'm not sure if we discussed this earlier, but, I'm going to a wedding next weekend in Cooperstown, New York, of a former player who actually I coached on the first team that played in the Firecracker event.
Wow.
And he's a local kid, and he still helps out Firecracker Baseball to this day, but he's getting married, and to be a part of that means a lot. And so, the relationships of people that I've coached, not even 18 years ago, 15 years ago, 5 years ago, even this past year, these guys always connect, even though we live in this busy world and this society. The ability to connect with people is better than ever because of social media. But the simple text, the simple messages help you get grounded with, why we do this, which is relationships. I mean, I have Dennis Labasia who helps me. Billy Young, who I coached 4 years ago at Dean College, is part of the company now. I mean, this is what it's about. It's about relationships. So, these guys don't have to go on and play professionally. They just have to have a great time doing what they do. And if you're a part of that, then it's all worth it, to have these relationships years and years after the fact.
Yeah, Cooperstown, New York. I've had a chance to visit there and go to the Hall of Fame. What a great place to get married. That kid's definitely passionate about baseball.
Yeah, they're a great story. He played at Utica College after leaving his hometown of Lincoln, Rhode Island. He pitched for a few years. He met the love of his life at college, and they chose Cooperstown. It's a destination wedding, so we're going up. But Columbus Day weekend in the fall, if you guys have never experienced it, it's in the Northeast. It's beautiful. The foliage, all the fairs going on every weekend. You can go to pick a town in New England and go to a fair. But to go to Cooperstown on Columbus Day weekend, me and my wife have been looking forward to it for a couple of years now since they announced it. So we're excited.
Hey, speaking of Columbus Day, you wrap up your busy summer and early fall Firecracker schedule with your first annual Columbus Day Bash kicking off October 6th in Bristol, Connecticut, around that area, home of ESPN. You got to be looking forward to that.
Yeah, we are. So it was we got 20-plus teams coming, and 18U and 15U. We got team from Nova Scotia, Canada. So the first time we have a team from Nova Scotia coming. But we got teams from New York, Connecticut, Mass, Rhode Island, along with Nova Scotia. So we're excited. We're actually playing at historic Muzzy Field in Bristol, Connecticut, where the championships will be held. But we're also using Catholic High School, great coach, Martin Fiore, good guy, wants to work with us, and using other fields around Hartford. But we're extremely excited. Once again, that's an event that's going to grow because Columbus Day weekend is kind of the end of baseball up here in New England. But having 20 teams right off the bat, we envision doing the social events with like ESPN and the New Britain Bees, which is a local minor league team to that area. And so we're excited that event is definitely the end of the year, but we're playing our position strong.
Yeah, I had a chance this summer to visit Muzzy Field, and legend has it that Babe Ruth hit the first home run at that ballpark many, many decades ago. So that's a great place for a kid to have an opportunity to play.
It's funny that you mentioned that because we went on a site visit recently and we saw the sign there, and we said Babe Ruth has been in every ballpark in New England because if you go to Cardines Field in Newport, that's the legend that he hit the first home run there as well. So he must have done some touring when he first came up, either through the Red Sox or when he finally went over to the Yankees. He must have visited every old stadium in New England and hit a home run in it.
Mark, as the MLB playoffs get cranked up here soon, great time of year for baseball fans all across the country. I think I know the answer to this, but what team are you going to be pulling for in the postseason?
Well, I mean, we're lifelong Red Sox fans up here, and if you deviate from that, you better move out of New England. So I'm not going to lie to you. The old saying is if you're so far ahead of everybody else, you better be prepared for some type of failure when it comes to playoff time. I'm kind of glad that they're not doing so well against Houston and Cleveland towards this last month of the season because they're going to face them at some point in the playoffs. So my hope is that they got their failure over with those two groups, and they overcome that when they have to face them in the playoffs. But, for the first time since 2013, we're sitting really good right now with home field advantage. Alex Cora has done a fantastic job, but I would be remiss if I wouldn't say Perry Francona has done a fantastic job in Cleveland as well.
Yeah, great manager.
He is. He did a great job here in Boston and really turning the page for this organization. And I'll be honest with you, I was sad to see him go because I thought he was a great manager.
I had a chance to visit Fenway about 35 years ago, Mark, as a kid. What an experience. I saw a classic game. You remember these names, Jim Rice, Dwight Evans, some of those guys. I think it went to the 10th or 11th inning and walk-off home run over the Green Monster. Man, what a memory. I think I was about 16 years old, and I'll be rooting for you. My son's a fan of the Red Sox, so we tune in when they're playing, especially in the postseason.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Now you guys, if I remember correctly, you guys are Rangers fans down there, or are you guys Houston fans?
Here in North Texas, most folks default to the Texas Rangers. They've had an off year. They'll be rebuilding. They're looking for some younger talent. There's some folks here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area that are definitely Astros fans, but for the most part in our area, it's Texas Rangers.
Yeah.
You trying to rub it in a little bit?
No, not at all. I'm just I'm trying to see who you're going to be shading to when you're watching these games in the next few weeks. We'll be rooting for the Astros, and then personally, I'll take some interest in the Red Sox. Not just because you're on here, but my son, one of the first youth teams he played on, I think like 7U, former guy from the Boston area that was a Marine.
was his coach, and the team was called the Red Sox. So every day at practice, that named Joey Uick, he would